The Witches, a classic Roald Dahl book brought to life at the beginning of the 90s by Angelica Houston as the Grand High Witch in a phenomenal role, has been brought back a second time at the beginning of the 2020s, this time with Anne Hathaway as the Grand High Witch. And I have to say, she doesn't try to play it as Angelica Houston. And thank goodness for that. Because along with a slightly different, more harpy-ish look, Anne Hathaway's Grand High Witch is very over the top, very almost mustache twirly comic book villain-ish. And she just owns it. I think she totally had a blast playing this character. She very rarely plays evil characters, and she just went full tilt. And honestly, her performance was very entertaining. Meanwhile, the grandma this time gets played by Octavia Spencer, and she was nice. She felt like someone who'd been through some stuff, haunted by the past, but stronger because of it. And her grandson, voiced in a couple of scenes by Chris Rock and played by a young man whose name you'll have to look up because some of these names I can hardly wrap my tongue around. Sorry about that. But honestly, the kid's portrayal felt a little more honest. You felt like this kid was shattered, literally. And on top of all that's happened to him, he gets turned into a mouse. But, like iron forged in fire, he ultimately gets stronger and is a better person because of, and in spite of what happened to him. The cast includes Stanley Tucci in Rowan Atkinson's role as the hotel manager. And sadly, Stanley doesn't measure up to Atkinson. He tries, but there's just no topping Mr. Bean. As for the rest of the cast, the various humans and witches and mice we meet are definitely more than just window dressing. We see the various settings populated by real people. They don't feel like characters. They're real people. And honestly, the parents of the chubby kid, who was kind of annoying as a human, but ended up being a lot more entertaining as a mouse, they were still rather over the top, especially the mom. So I'm glad they kept that in the original, or from the original story, or at least the original movie. The effects were obviously CGI. You could tell what was CGI. The mice looked cartoonish, but honestly, I didn't mind because the various animals in the film, they looked real enough. And while the CGI of the mice could have been a little cleaner, honestly, as a kid's story, it kind of worked. Like, if this had been done 50 years earlier, they would have used Mary Poppins style animation, and I think it would have worked too back then. Instead, they just used computer animation. And at the very least, in some scenes, the mice looked like they were really there. As for the various witches, you could tell some of the CGI on their person, but for the most part, their look was pretty decent and really, really gross in a good way. As for the transformation from human to mice, it worked. It was less violent looking and more gas humor, but overall, I think the various effects, the witches, the magic, the mice, the various other animals, they worked. For what was being portrayed, they worked. Of course, nothing can top the practical effects of the original movie, but then again, if they had used practical effects, I'm sure it would have cost a lot more to put this on screen. So I'm glad we got what we got. Like I said, the acting of everyone was very ranged, and everyone did a fine job. The story sticks to the original book, I think, more closely than the movie. The first movie. And it all moves along at a really decent pace. The pacing is very, very well done. You get to where you need to go very quickly in the film. Overall, the 2020 remake of The Witches, it does what it's supposed to do. It entertained me, and I'm sure it'll entertain plenty of young people. I do recommend seeing the original version as well, but that's only because of the performances and the effects. This film, as a standalone, is passable. It's definitely something worth seeing around Halloween or really anytime. Especially for the music. If you are an oldies fan, the music will definitely put you in a good mood. And that's about it. This is Mr. J signing out and reminding you, not all witches are evil, just the ones that are inhuman. So, yeah. Looking forward to the Hocus Pocus sequel. It's just too bad we don't get to see Anne Hathaway lock horns with Bette Midler. That would have been a heck of a fight.